So, hello everyone. We are back with this very interesting discussion today on Pigeon and Black Mape, very critical crops. And we are having some very eminent speakers who would be sharing their views. Just a little bit of check on am I visible as well as audible, Mr. Neeraj?
Yes, Mr. Deepak.
Thank you. So, guys, we all know that actually we have been going through a very tough time when it comes to typically, the challenges faced by Indian agriculture. And the pulses has become something of a hot topic in all the discussion when it comes to agriculture. One of the reason for that is that actually we have seen in past couple of quarters there have been substantial hike in the prices of majority of pulses, and mostly that rise has been seen in tuar and urad, uh, pigeon pea and black mape. And this is where actually one of the challenge we see is that the current crop which is being getting harvested as we speak in India, which is one of the largest producer and consumer of these crops, has been less than expected. So we have seen that there has been decline in sowing, and definitely like in Gaurav from AgPulse would be talking about those numbers. And overall, if you see that the pulses basket, we have seen 8 to 9% decline in the sowing as per the government figures itself. And if you talk to different private players, that number will get increased to as high as 12 to 14%, depending on which analyst you are talking about, or whose data you are taking forward. These crops are also impacted very heavily by imports coming from predominantly East Africa and Burma or Myanmar. And we have seen that in East Africa also, there are predominantly three large countries who produces and take care of India's import demand, which happens to be Malawi, Tanzania, and Mozambique. Mozambique being a very large player. Unfortunately, in the previous season, we have not seen too much of crop coming from Mozambique. In fact, it is just 40% of what generally the average from Mozambique is. There are various reasons for that, and we don't want to get into those. But we have seen that Mozambique as a origin, we are having challenge of getting crop from there. Now that has made this whole agri commodities subsector of tuar and urad pretty volatile. Now, the idea of this webinar is to where actually the trader, the ecosystem players who are typically financing the trade, the government who are making policies around it, corporations which are trying to add value at different stages, whether it is about creating sufficient availability, the processing, the logistics, and the last mile delivery of processed tuar or urad in form of dal to the end users. So today we'll be having a very interesting discussion around all these aspects. And I would like to take this opportunity to welcome my co-panelist. So we have got Gaurav Jain from AgPulse, who will be talking about some numbers around tuar. We are having uh, JAYESH Patelji, who happens to be from Big. He's a CEO of Big, and he's having a humongous experience when it comes to pulses. In fact, I can proudly say that there was a time when 30 to 40% of India's pulses import used to have signature of Jayesh Bhai. We also have Mr. Dilip Mohanty. Dilip ji is from Reliance, and as we know that he is again also just like Jayesh Bhai, an institution in himself, being in industry for decades, and his knowledge of this industry has been phenomenal, and what he brings on table is very sharp insight. And then we also have Mr. Hitesh Jain, who is from Myanmar. He is part of various organizations in Myanmar, and he'll be talking about what's his take on the possibility of import production, those numbers from Myanmar. We also have with us Hari. Hari Varman is actually based out of Tanzania, one of the largest exporter from Tanzania of the tour. And then we also have my very good friend and young dynamic trader in the industry, Ankush Jain. Ankush is from Olam Agri, and he wears multiple hats from a trader to processor of pulses, and now also trying to get the tour from farm all the way to our folk. We'll start with Gauravji. Gauravji, can you enable your video and share your screen for the presentation?
Thank you, Deepak ji, for this opportunity. I'm trying. Yes. Can you see that now?
So far, not.
Okay, give me some time. Give me a minute.
Yeah, sure, please. Yeah, it is visible, Gauravji. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. So this is the discussion for Pigeon Peas and Black Matpe. I will be presenting numbers mostly on Pigeon Peas. So these are the numbers that should catch everyone's eye. The crop that we are having this year, we are expecting it to be 2.85 million tons, much lower than what government is saying as of now. So from the highs of 4.87 in 16-17, the production had dipped to 4.3 or say 4.2 2 years back. And we are much lower than from those levels. Last year also there was a setback of about 15%. This year again there's a setback of 15%. Now this setback could have been avoided if the acreage would have increased in certain parts of the country. But now this is a picture. On top of the lower production, we are also experiencing lower carry-in. So that is a major issue. Say a few years back, we were carrying nearly half of the crop. Now the total carry this year is we are expecting only about 500,000 tons. So the only way to compensate the supply gap is imports. The imports have really risen. Our exporters in East Africa and Myanmar, those farmers and those exporters and those countries have really helped us in bridging this gap from nearly 400 to 500,000 tons that used to come to India from these origins. Now we are talking about 1 million ton, and possibly if situations remain normal at the exporters side, it could have risen above 1 million tons. We need to understand that pigeon pea is one of the crops which is consumed exclusively by Indians. So even our neighbors in South Asia do not consume tur as much as we do. There's a very small consumption in Bangladesh and Nepal, in Bangladesh and Pakistan and Sri Lanka and the rest of the world. So it's only the Indian diaspora in UAE and Saudi and US and UK and Australia which consume it. So the market, whether it is at origins or India, it depends on the Indian consumption only. So the total supply, we are looking at only about 4.4 million tons for this year, for 2024, out of which 2.8 we already have from the production, 500,000 from the carryover in all areas. So be it private, public, wholesale, millers, everything. And total imports that are viable as of now is about 1 million ton in the coming year. So total supply is only 4.4, and consumption, even if we decrease it from highs of 4.8 to 4.1, we will be leaving with a tighter balance. So though say pulses as a whole is still a small portion in terms of the household budget, it is still very small. 20% increase in pulses prices do not really materialize so much in the plate or in the common man's availability. But the issue is bigger than that. When people talk about dalo mein lag gayi aag, so the issue is bigger than that. It is the availability per day per capita. This is something which I want to draw everyone's attention. We are looking at so this quantity that you are seeing is per gram per day per person. So if India's population is 1.4 billion and there are 365 days in a year, you can multiply this number by those two, and you will have the total consumption, which is 4.1. So 7.86 into 365 into 1.4 billion population, you'll come down to 4.1. So this is a problem, that per capita availability is only 7.86, which is much lower than 2 years back, say 9.34 or 9.42. Now somebody has to leave tur from his plate. in order to accommodate a 9.34 for everyone's plate. So that is a problem. Now, for pulses also, the total availability per day per person is actually decreasing. If we see the total imports of India and total production over the years, it has gone stagnant, if not increasing. And this year, with the lower acreage for gram and lower production in tur, and there will be difficulty in availability for lentils also, as much as it was in 2023. Australia had a bigger crop and Canada had a bigger crop, and we could buy all of it. And we had a bigger carry for lentils as well. So the total availability will be low. So somebody has to sacrifice his or her own share of lentils in order to bring it to the normal level for someone else. So total availability is low. We have to, when we are talking about pulses, this is the number that we should be talking about, the total availability. Even if the price raised by 20%, the total pulses budget out of a household budget might be 5% only, on the higher side, or maybe 2%. So that does not increase much. But the point is, if there is no availability, no price rise can compensate for that. Somebody has to give up the demand. And that is my worry. In 2024, be it tur, be it grams, somewhere people will have to ration their demand for these pulses. Now, what will substitute it? It's a big question. I can only assume yellow peas. How much of it can come, whether government will allow it after 31st of March, and what is the availability to India? Those are the questions that we can ponder in some other time. Origin wise, these are the imports that India has taken. Mostly it comes from Myanmar as one country and from East Africa, whether it is Mozambique, Tanzania, Malawi, Sudan, Kenya, and some portion from others, like sometimes it comes from Jebel Ali, so the origin becomes UAE, or say Singapore, and the origin becomes Singapore, but those are small numbers. And sometimes Uganda also. This year, we were expecting Mozambique to be contributing about 500,000 tons in India's import basket. So these numbers for 2023 are not yet complete. We have government data till October. For November, we have a lot of manifests, but December is something which we are missing on this table. So total final tally will be close to 900,000 tons, or it can be slightly higher than that also. But again, the thing is that Mozambique had production, but the politics and all kinds of non-tariff barriers that were put in reduced the availability to India. So while in last year they contributed nearly 500,000 tons to Indian food requirement or tur requirement, this year the total will be less than 400,000 for sure. So if those pigeon peas which are still there in Mozambique come later in first half of 2024, that can increase the availability for us. But we still need to depend for 2024 to meet the supply gap. We will need more than 1 million tons of imports. Whether the farmers in East Africa and Myanmar be up for this is a difficult question right now. What will be the weather in those regions in later half of 2024? What will be the availability from there? What are the political scenarios that will emerge? India has already reduced the duty-free imports to 2025, March 2025. So that is, from Indian policy point of view, we are secure on that front. But there are still a lot of unknowns per acreage, per weather, per policies at origins, and a host of other factors. So India will need a lot more pigeon peas in 2024, and more likely, if the domestic production trend continues the same, maybe more. I'll come to some of the changes that can reduce this dependency. These acreage numbers are in 1,000 hectares. So, and so if you go back, say 30, 40 years back, a lot of tur was grown in the northern part of the country. Uttar Pradesh used to be the biggest state with acreage. Madhya Pradesh used to contribute a lot. Then there were states in like Bihar, and now Bihar and Jharkhand, and similarly, uh, Similarly, Andhra and Telangana, even states like Haryana, had substantial amount of tur acreage. Now that has really gone away. We for Indian tur production, we are more or less dependent on Karnataka and Maharashtra. If government makes some policy changes or incentivize the farmers up in north, the climate is suitable, the land is there, and it is not that this land has to come from something substantial. Even if this land comes from something which is which will impact the production of that crop marginally, there is a good incentive for the farmer and for the government to increase the acreage in north. So this is a slightly complicated chart. I've shown it as a video also. In 1966-67, Uttar Pradesh was the top producer in terms of acreage. But if you see uh, over the years, the states which were not there so prominent, say 40 years back, started gaining prominence. Now, even now, even in late 80s, Karnataka was a small producer. Uttar Pradesh was still beating Karnataka in terms of acreage. And if you see the current scenario, once Karnataka started taking over in late 2005, after 2005, it has become the crop only in those two states. The other states have faded. If you, this is the current scenario as per the government of India. Karnataka is 1.3 million hectares, Maharashtra is 1.1, and if you add the rest of it, so only 1/3 of it is coming from the rest of it. We have land in Uttar Pradesh, we have land in Gujarat, which is going into other production, other crops. The land is not fallow, which is a great thing. But if the farmers are incentivized, we can have more more production domestically, and we will be less dependent on asking countries like Brazil and Australia to grow pigeon peas for us, which still is a distant dream. Uh, if see on a very positive front, if even farmers in Australia and Brazil respond to Indian requirement, the voyage time is too high, and because the only destination is India, those farmers will always be reluctant to grow for that. If Indian crop is too good, or if Indian policy changes, they will have nowhere else to go. This is one crop which is consumed exclusively by Indians, and they may not take that chance so easily. That's all from my side on the presentation side. We will discuss. The floor is probably open now. Deepak ji?
Yeah, thanks a lot. So can you stop the sharing so that I can have
Yes.
one?
It's all
Yeah,
right.
excellent. Gaurav, very interesting data. Actually, in fact, before the call, I also had opportunity of talking to Rahul Chauhan of iGrain as well as Tanmay Deepak, who unfortunately both had medical emergencies, so they were not able to join. And they are also in sync with the data what you're presenting, right? Plus minus few percent here and there. Only difference of opinion is on the import side. So they see a little bit larger import, coming in. Now, my $1 million question to you is that we have seen that based on the data which you just presented, historically, from 17-18 to current production numbers, right? We are seeing close to 36% drop.
Correct.
Right. Now, do you see there are environmental factors? Do you see it is a policy issues, or do you see some other reason which you were able to identify for such drop? Because this has been a continuous drop. It is not that actually that this is an outlier year, right? Previous year also we had lower crop. Before that it was little bit of 2 years stagnant, but we have seen this drop to be consistent. So if this would be a one-off year where it's outlier, then actually we can say okay, fine, let's eat a little bit less toward this year, right? But eventually next year again we can go back, but doesn't seem. And again, connecting dot there where you talked about the per capita consumption, right? There also we are seeing that similar trend, right? There have been a
Right.
gradual decrease in per capita consumption, and we know that India is a country where actually, unfortunately, we are having issues of child stunting, which is directly related to the protein security of the nation. Now, what are those reasons, according to you, could be behind such a drastic gradual fall?
I think tur is a risky crop for the farmer. Um, I'm still naive at say farming side, but I believe that tur is a risky crop to farm. It takes long for the pulses. Amongst the pulses basket, it takes long, has a long gestation period. It has uh, uh, it can be affected climatically in those months. So last year there was climate which was responsible. This year, because of the previous year's experience, farmers put less acreage, and then the climate also happened. So the rains were erratic uh, during the monsoon and even post monsoon. A lot of areas were dry. In monsoon, most of the rain came only in a month in different states. So first it started in south and then east and then west and then north. So most of the rainfall, the total rainfall activity was normal if you see by the percentage terms. But if you see closely, most of that activity happened within few days, which is not very normal for Indian subcontinent. And so this year, some of it, the drop of 15%, some of it is because of the acreage and some of it is because of the yield. The only way I see is if the farmers in north or in and west are incentivized to start planting tur again. They were planting it just a generation back. It's not that they don't know how to plant, or it's not an alien crop to them. But somehow farmers have detached themselves from this. So I'm not sure what policy changes right now can be done, but yes, there is a requirement of incentivizing the farmers in Western India, in North India, to increase the acreage. That way, we will also be mitigating the climatic issues. So, if the climate is not so conducive in South, the climate can be very conducive in North, and that can compensate with the yields. India is a huge country on that front.
Right. So if I would like to add here, your comment on a thesis, which I'll be just sharing with you. See, when we believe that, जो आपने भी बोला, you said कि तुअर में लगी आग, right? इस तरह के, चैनल्स के ऊपर, न्यूज चैनल पे डिस्कशन चालू हो जाते हैं जब तुअर का प्राइस ऊपर जाता है. And they're also right because they have to, cater to the consumer, because consumer is seeing their channels. Now, don't you think that until and unless we come to one very simple conclusion that when you want to incentivize farmer, that means you'll have the prices which will be high, whether that money goes to an Indian farmer, a farmer in Burma, or a farmer in Tanzania, right? People have to pay more for the raw material, which is tur, because tur is actually consumed in a secondary manner rather than the primary
Right.
manner. Uski dal banti hai, then there is a logistic, then there is a processing, there is a milling, and then it comes to the end user. Now when we start questioning के तुअर दाल 170 रुपए क्यों हो गई है, right? Do you see that there is a possibility for even to incentivize the farmer to grow more tuar?
I think there is the 170 rupees that we pay for dal does not really go to the farmer. So at the time of harvest, the prices are not that great, and that is what the farmer wants. Unfortunately, farmer does not have the storage capacity financially and logistically, and that is a very unfortunate part for most of the crops in India. Farmer sells at the time of harvest when everyone is selling, which brings the prices down. So, at large, farmers are not the recipient of what consumers pay. So, take an example of chana. A few years back, India literally banned yellow pea imports, and farmers in Maharashtra, especially Maharashtra, western part of India, responded really well. Maharashtra became #1 state in gram acreage, and beating Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. Even there, the acreage was increasing. One of the reason was that NAFED was buying all across. So reason was not that chana prices were very high. No, chana prices were not really high, in 2022, 2021, but the farmers were still responding with acreage. Tur prices last year were really high, but farmers did not respond. Farmers want a stable crop. He knows about weather, and thanks to a lot of techs and newspapers and DD Kisan, they know their stuff. They know what El Nino is more or less. So if they can plan, if they plan less tur acreage, there has to be a mitigation of that risk by the industry, by the government, by the stakeholders.
Right. No, just adding to you very rightly pointed out, farmer wants a stable policy, right? As you rightly said, that actually the price become stable, so that they know actually when they're harvesting what they're getting. At the
Right.
same time, traders also love to have stability, right? They also like in what price we are buying and what price we are disposing, and that stability has to be there. And we all know during arrival the prices are under pressure, and as we move forward, because this is a single crop
Right.
cycle, so we don't have it is being grown in Kharif and Rabi both. So they know that actually what harvest is like going to be there by end of April. That is only what India would be having, except the imports. Now in this scenario, trader wants stability, market players, the dal millers want stability, the end consumer wants stability. Do you see that if everybody wants the price stability, the policy stability should be there rather than actually taking the reactions when whether the sowing has been done or after harvest. So don't you think that actually before the season itself we should have very clear demarcated policy, which is जैसे मोदी जी बोलते हैं मोदी की गारंटी ऐसी गारंटी हो जाए कि यही पॉलिसी रहने वाली. Do you think that this logic of mine
This
makes sense?
No, this will help, but I cannot discount the policymakers. There are a lot of big think tanks in government also, and I'm sure they have their own reasons why the policy is so erratic over the years. So
No, I don't want to put you in a soup, but
no,
I
it's not about soup. No, it's not about soup, Deepak. It's a normal feeling that I have, that the government has access to the resources which you and I don't have. They can really call you or me anytime, and they can take our opinions, and not just you and me, but anyone at large. So, and they have their own people which are on the ground, which know the reality much more than us. Whether they publish it or not is a different aspect, but they know. Point is, they know, and the tools that government has, none of us can match in real terms. So I can't really discount their intelligence. I can't. I don't have a reason why that policy is good. I don't. I also criticize most of the policies of the establishment, but I'm still saying that they have their own reasons, and they should better have their own reasons. And it is also a government's job to provide good prices to the farmer. They need not to be in the business, but still take care of all the stakeholders so the nation remains food secure and employed.
I totally agree with you. So I back your concept that the government is having sufficient knowledge. But whether they are having right data, I have my own reason to believe they don't. And it's not about whether they have published or not published, right? In fact, the way the data has been now, actually, past 2 years, I'm seeing the change, right? They're trying to digitize it. They're trying to be more efficient. They're trying to use satellite-based imagery. So they are doing a lot of things in past couple of years for sure. But still, I believe that the way the data is being collected from ground, right? It needs a lot of changes, because I always when I interact with government, I tell them that actually the way they collect the data from the ground was created by Todermal, who used to be the revenue minister for Akbar, right? Only from Baikatas and Kagas. Now we are talking about dashboards. So with that, thanks a lot, Gaurav, for very very interesting take. And I would request all the panelists if they can start their video, and then we can have the panel discussion around what Gaurav shares. And while everybody does that, I would just like to add some of the data point on Urad. So we are looking at the demand of close to 2.5 million metric tons. Production would be roughly we are looking at 1.7 million metric tons. That would lead to possibility of export of 0.8 million metric tons, and the carry forward would be in range of 0.8 lakhs or 0.08 million to 0.1 million metric ton. I would first like to go straight away to Jayesh Bhai. So Jayesh Bhai, your initial views on the data being shared by AgPulse, and fabulous, very well articulated, and in fact The visualization was super. I loved it. In fact, I have not seen too many companies doing visualization in such a beautiful way. Congratulations for doing that. Jayesh bhai, what to you, sir?
Thank you, Deepak bhai. First and foremost, I would like to thank Gaurav. I just have a couple of submission here. Maybe that could help. If we go back to the data, what Gaurav has presented, the consumption of tour was 3 million tons in 2015 and 16. And probably the 16 and 17, the consumption straight away increased by 27% to 4,125,000. I mean 4.125. That's what I think the Gaurav has presented. So first and foremost, if we go by the historical data, I think the sudden jump of million ton in consumption, I think this is something I have my reservations, perhaps something that we could look at it, because this is where we probably see that we are creating a bit of hype there. So the consumptions data, I think in a one particular year jumping by 25%, there should be something, it doesn't convince me on this thing. Second point, which I would like to talk about the Gaurav, I'm just talking to you straight to a bullet point, and Gaurav, please do not feel offended any manner.
No.
I just wanted to submit my submission. You see, we cannot generalize pulses in general. Specifically when we talk of the tour. Tour is a totally different crop compared to all other pulses. Now you are talking to the government on policy, government on all this thing. Look at the global basket of tour is only 4 million ton. Right. Perhaps some of the guys sitting on the panel, they trade much bigger volume than of the totally. So 4 million ton of the one particular commodity is not something significant. Out of which the 75%, I'm just taking ballpark figure, 75% produced by India. The thing. So one point in tour which we need to remember why we are having this sort of reservation by the farmers. Because it is a manually planted and manually harvested crop, as opposed to the other pulses. Second particular point that if we seek any support from Brazil or Australia to grow the tour, with the 12 hours $12 to $15 per hour labor cost, tour cannot be competitive if it is produced in Australia and Brazil. Let's be honest on this particular point. Okay, because tour you need to plant one by one seed, harvest by everything. There is a thing. Let's go into the modernization of if we say the thing. In 4 million, which machine company or the machinery company in the world will invest in R&D of the thing? In wheat, India alone production is about 80 to 100 million ton. Global production is tons and tons. Corn is tons and tons. Rice in tons and tons. There's a sufficient R&D is being done when it comes to the investment in planting, harvesting, processing, everything. With the 4 million ton, whom do you expect to invest in that thing? So fundamentally, we all should be clear. The tour in entire pulse on the pulses basket, it's something where we have a dependency on a third world country, where the labor cost of labor and the availability of labor is available. The thing. So that is the one submissions I would say the thing. Even if you look at the policy point of view, green gram, which is the shortest crop, right? Easy to harvest, easy to plant. Our MSP is around 85 rupees, if I'm not making a mistake on this thing. As opposed to, and green gram can be produced in no time, in a multiple times in the things, while tour is produced once in a year, while the MSP is there is about 70 rupees the thing. So that is the second submissions from my end as a thing. So I think the all in all, what we need to look at is the point is a tour is a separate thing. And I think there is not a much gap in the demand and supply. Obviously, we expect this is from the last 10 to 15 years of, I mean, I've been in more than that in trade, but in last 15 years, I've seen this is the one particular year where we have seen there is a little bit crisis in the tuar because of the less crop in India. And obviously that was also impact was there in Africa also. Africa, we had a couple of times the cyclone and other stuff where the crop was a bit less. So this is a particularly typically it's a unique year or exception year where the demand is a little bit high as such. These are my few submissions.
Very valid point, Jayesh bhai, like, very interesting and sharp focus observations. I also like, it's my personal view that trying to grow tuar in Australia and Brazil is not going to happen, right? We might have these as like, news articles, like, ab ugayega Brazil Bharat ke liye tuar, but it is not going to happen. The crop size is too limited for them to take those type of risk. And as you rightly mentioned, in fact, like, I would like to touch upon the very interesting point you said. Why anybody would innovate for such a small crop? And in fact, not just like I am saying that the private players, even the government, right? India is one of the largest producer of this crop and largest consumer of this crop. The total amount of research being put in pulses predominantly is on chana only, right? How do you find that, like, ICAR and all those research institutions, right, doing substantial and valuable research on crops like urad or tuar? And this tells you, like, sorry state. So I totally agree with you. I would like to go to Dilip ji next. Dilip ji, your again the sharp focused views on what we have just discussed so far, sir.
Good evening, Deepak ji, and good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for this invitation. I think Gaurav, you've given a fantastic presentation. I'm impressed the way you have articulated entire thing end to end. Congratulations for that. Very happy for that. And coming to the pigeon peas, quantities are slowly decreasing. Basically, this is basically 180 days crop. So it is only prone to weather vagaries, animals grazing, and that's the problem. One problem. Second side, a 180 days crop, but yield is only one hectare, 1 ton per hectare. If you compare that to with any of the cereals that we normally do, it is 3 to 4 times. That is one of the reasons the shifting happens for other cash crop as compared to tuar. Plus, this is a rent-fed crop, available to breeder seed, and all that is there. And second point, what Deepak ji you told, I completely agree with you. There's not much of a technological advancement has happened here. Not much of investment has gone for this kind of crop to come. I'll compare this thing with basmati. Every second year we say new basmati rice, new variety comes. 1171, 1121, 1059, 1718. Then 1401. Every second year we say new variety, and this coming in millions of tons. That is what I'm saying. So I think a lot of thinking has to be done at the government level. A lot of action has to happen. As far as data for Gaurav is concerned, as far as production data is bang on. Last time the figure was 28 to 29, 30 lakh tons as compared to government figure was 34. 33, 34. This time you're saying 28, fine. That is what exactly our estimates are also. We are relying something at 28 and 29. But the carryover stock, what you said about 5 lakh tons, that is slightly, I think, on a higher side. I think it is not more than 2.5 lakh tons at this moment. That is out. Otherwise, I think overall the numbers are really fantastic.
Very well. Sir, yeah. Just sorry to cut, but when I talk about the beginning stocks or carry-in, we talk about the whole supply chain. Not just the millers or exporters, but also the wholesalers and retailers.
Mm-hmm.
So then the quantum becomes slightly bigger. Every retailer must be having at least 30-35 kg, or the wholesalers must be having slightly bigger, say. And there are modern trade which generally carry at each store they carry some inventory. So it is our estimate of the inventory at the country.
Sure, level. I would also like agree with Dilip ji, even like in the value chains, right? It has been actually like bleeded dry, right, in this season. So like carry forward, I believe like it would be very close to what Dilip ji mentioned. That is again, see, we all have our own ways of collecting data, so nobody's right or wrong, because Unfortunately, there is no specific mechanism of collecting it. Dilip ji, please continue with
Yeah,
your
one more thing I would say, a lot of work is happening in the background. हमको लगता हो नहीं रहा है. I have got one or two friends. He is a dean of Orissa Agriculture University, is a classmate of mine. I have been talking to him for quite some time. He's saying extensive work is coming. A lot of new varieties are going to come up. He's looking at the variety which is about 90 to 100 days duration, and it will be resistant to pest, resistance to drought, and excess moisture. So a lot of work is going on the background. Not necessarily government is not doing or they are sitting quietly. So work is happening. They're going at his speed. So a lot of things are happening here onwards. We might see much better days ahead as far as Thor is concerned.
No, I'll also agree with you that, like, recently in past couple of years, things have been on, I'll say that, steroid mode, right? In the development circles also, even in the private sector. I know about few companies actually which are working on a variety in which the existing harvesters can be used. So those type of innovations are being done. That's a good news for all of us that actually innovation is happening. Now, I would like to go to Ankush, your initial views about how do you see those numbers, and what is your take on that?
Good evening, Deepak ji. Good evening, everyone. And hi, Gaurav ji. I think the way you have presented the numbers are really good. And I agree with Deepak ji and Dilip ji and JAYESH ji as well that the numbers can be haywire, as in it can always have plus minus 2 or 3% variance between the individual companies. But more or less, I think in terms of the carry out for 2023-24, which is 24 last carry out, which you have shown us about 250, 100,000 ton. This is something which I believe is quite optimistic. One. Two, I believe that 1 million ton of import is like another bit optimistic number. Three, since we try to cater right from the origin to the retailer, I believe. So in our SNDs also, like, we have taken about 275 to 280K kind of a carry in for the current year, as in 2024, against 550 which you have taken. So overall, one thing which I think we all agree that the overall demand destruction has happened in the past 1 or 2 years. In the last 1 year, the demand destruction has happened. In this particular year, 2024, the demand destruction may not really happen to a great extent, because whomsoever was economically sensitive segment that have already considered the price and moved to the other commodities in the last year itself. Predominantly, when we say it's unorganized Horeca segment, which is one of the segment which eventually tries to move from typically pure tour consumption to the other blending with other protein substitutes, and also to an extent wherever the per capita income is less in some of the segments of India, there people definitely can eventually switch to their commodities. But overall, demand destruction has happened, and I also agree with the 4.1 or 4.2 numbers. There are two key submissions which I would like to give here, Deepak ji. One is, the larger issue in India is that we don't see for the next 5 to 10 years. One of the biggest variable is weather, which is most uncontrollable variable, right? And we can forecast, but whenever we talk with IMD or SkyMed and the other agencies, so yes, we can forecast, let's say, a quarter, 2 quarter, then with some limitations for the entire year, then with more limitations for the next 5 years, and then with extreme limitations for the next 1 decade. But unfortunate part is that we have to somehow formulate and work on the innovations to eventually get some more real-time understanding in the forecasting for the weather for the next 3 to 5 years, because weather is something which plays a very, very critical role in terms of the supply of the food. And having said anything, we are still a population growth trajectory. We are sitting at 1.4 billion population, and China, we are on a growth trajectory. So on one of the economical data I was reading that by 2030 we would be about 1.7, 1.72, and by 2040 we would be about 1.9 or 2, right? So eventually we just keep the same protein consumption today, we would be at somewhere about 43 to 45 million ton of pulses consumption in 2050, and 34 to 35 million ton of consumption in 2020, 30, and then 2035. So what I mean to say is that eventually the consumption is going to grow overall. And as Jayesh sir is eventually specifically told us, we have to keep all the pulses separately. So when we talk about pigeon peas, pigeon peas has a very specific consumption pattern. There is hardly 15 to 20% of the segment which can eventually move away from pigeon peas consumption. But apart from that, 75 to 80% of the consumption is someone which eventually eat pigeon peas only, which one can move within the variants of dal, but it will not move from pigeon peas to the other protein substituent. So that is something which you have to definitely keep in our mind. Second, globally, when we talk about the global environment and the ecosystem to support the supplies, one of the key variable in the supply is the farming cost. And as Jayesh also clearly mentioned, that farming cost plays a very, very big role there. So we eventually have to move to the countries which is typically the East African countries, and rather if we can have a policy which can eventually give them a support and visibility for the next 5 to 10 years or 15 years, wherein those farmers that have clear visibility that even in the next 5 to 10 years, India will become an importer, with maybe with a import tax plus minus, but OGL will eventually give them a clear visibility. That's the second thing which I believe government should definitely think about. And largely, third, which is typically pertaining to the current year 2024, I don't think it is any way different from the 2023. It is going to be a tough year, and we all have to see like how government will eventually try to manage these supplies in a consistent manner. But one thing which you have to keep in our mind, that 70 rupees is a APMC loose mandi price. Whereas when we talk about the mill price, so MSP in itself is not a right reflection of the market price or a price to the miller. Even if let's say 70 is the MSP price, then the price to the miller becomes 75 or 73 or 75. And then when you convert that 75 into a dal, it converts at about 120 to 125 rupees minimum, right? So 120 to a wholesaler, then adding some margins for the retailer and some margins for the wholesaler. So eventually going with the 70 rupees MSP is about 140 to 150 rupees as a consumer pack price for a consumer. So when we say that the dal price is a high price or a low price, it is very subjective and it's very emotional to say any comment on any prices. But what I'm trying to just tell you is 145 to a consumer versus 70 MSPs, I think is a more or less an equivalent indexing. So government should always keep a perspective in mind that whenever they are increasing the MSPs, so that will have an impact on the consumer price as well.
So very well articulated, Ankush bhai, as always.
Thank you, Deepak.
And someone who has been across the value chain, right? From say that sourcing from the ground all the way to delivering the pulses, dal actually. So we very well explain the whole value chain issues. And here actually, I would, I believe, what all of us we have seen one thing is that in some of the industries, where the policy making is a little bit better. I won't say that as great as it should be. But there, the associations plays a very vital role because they are having a lot of on-ground data themselves collected. I believe in pulses. I think that is we are lacking a little bit. See, we all are having questioning each other on the data itself, right? So, for example, whether you talk about in the oil seed sector or in the sugar sector, even if the government take policies, those policies get rectified because associations are able to go to the government with the right sort of data. Currently, if I go to government with my data, I say that actually, how can I say your data is right? Then someone else goes with another data. So I believe if the people from our oldest association of the sector are listening to it, we need to find a little bit better way of collecting and sharing data. Because I can recall there was an instance when actually everybody has discounted that this rainfall is not having any impact on productivity. Right. So that was circulated. And now all of us, we are agreeing at least production has been pretty lower than even the previous year, which was lower than the subsequent year. So I believe we as an industry need to have more credible way of collecting data. Now I would like to go to people who are very critical to us, because when we even say that whether it is 0.8, it is 1 or it is 1.4 million metric ton, whatever it will be imported, it is going to come first from Myanmar and then second from East Africa. So I would like to hear out Hitesh bhai, what are your views on the production numbers, the possibility of imports from Myanmar? How do you see crop there? And will Myanmar dal ki aag ko kam kar payega, nahi kar payega? So over to you, Hitesh bhai.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I think, Gaurav, it was an excellent presentation by you. and very, very comprehensive, and we could make out very, very clearly about the consumption, the production numbers, and so on. As far as Myanmar is concerned, I think we are neighbors. A lot of people, I think, are not aware that Myanmar is a neighbor to India. So let me just, broadcast this over here. Secondly, I think as far as Pigeon Peas is concerned, I think since 2017, this whole thing has started. Before 2017, there were no notifications, there were no policies which were implemented by the governments and so on. And all of this has happened because 1 or 2 production years of India exceeded. And in order to protect Indian farmers, government came up with these all measures to ensure that the farmers in India are protected. Now, I would first like to highlight Jayesh Bhai's very important point is that in Pigeon Peas, the number is a very small number. And despite being a small number, you will see a continuous intervention by the governments, whether they want to control, whether they want to bring quantitative restrictions, whether there is this OGL mechanism which they want to do YOY basis. Why do they need a OGL? Why do they want to bring any notifications when the crop size of Myanmar is so small? So if I say in a simpler word, Myanmar production has been constant or has been between 1.2 to 1.6 to 1.8 million ton maximum in the last decade. If you see, they have not been doubling every year where you are scared that there will be too much of production of Myanmar and it will eventually come to India or it will be dumped in India. That has not been the case. Now, what has happened is after the intervention of the government, I would say since 2017, the production of Pigeon Peas, which used to be 300 to 350,000 ton, at one stage in next 2 years came to 100,000 tons. And now, because of, again, the demand which, again, India has shown, gradually this has been increased. We are all aware that Pigeon Peas, it takes about 6 months time for the farmer to, sow till it has been harvested. So any farmer would not like to get into a crop which under any circumstances has any stress or where he is confused or he is pressured. Because we have to understand that Myanmar doesn't consume all these pulses which are grown. It is primarily for exports. So unless we don't, give the confidence to the farmers back in Myanmar, I don't think they'll be in a position to, increase their production, which we've seen. That is my submission for Pigeon Peas. As far as production numbers are concerned, for Pigeon Peas, this year, I think because of the prices which have been robust, the farmers were motivated. And I believe Pigeon Peas from Myanmar will be anywhere between 300 to 350,000 tons, plus or minus 5%. That is my take.
Any take on Udad?
Udad, sir, same. I think Udad, yes. Again, the prices were very good at the time of sowing. So I believe that even in Udad, the production will be better as compared to last year, anywhere around 20 to 22%. If you talk about a specific number, anywhere around 800,000 ton, plus or minus 5%. But as you rightly mentioned, sir, that numbers is always, there's no clear data. So likewise in Myanmar also, we do not have any data. So this is all a market hearsay, what we are getting the numbers from. Yeah.
Sure. So now I'll go to second origin, very important, East Africa. So Hari, your take on what do you see? Because see, so far it's very difficult to predict what Tanzania or Malawi or Mozambique would be doing because we are not even getting into the season. But based on historically what happened last year, how do you see those numbers? And because if we talk about for roughly even 1.2 million metric ton of possible requirement, and even we go that we need by I'm saying hook or crook 1 million metric ton to be imported, Myanmar is going to only give 0.35, right? So if I'll say that everything is normal as it used to be, which currently it is not, Africa would have taken care of it. But in current scenario, do you see my question is very blunt that in case we discount what is happening in Mozambique, can Tanzania provide more going forward? And what was the last year? Has it been an increase or stagnant in export over the last couple of years?
Good evening, Deepak ji. Am I audible?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Okay. So with regards to Tanzania, this year in 2023, the crop was not that big compared to last year due to climatic conditions, unseasonal rains, and all. So roughly, I think we exported about 1.2 lakh tons maximum, 1.1. So last year it was much bigger. It was about 1.7 to 1.8. It was a better season last year. Looking at what what the farmers have enjoyed in the last 2 years, considering the markets which India has bought in the last 2 years, I would see that though it's too early to predict on all those, I would see that the farmer sentiments are good because they have got better prices last 2 years. So technically, they will be going for a better sowing. So we should be able to get if all things if everything goes well, if everything supports climatic conditions and yield and pesticide issues or something, whatever it is, those things are all supportive. Then we can achieve what we had achieved in 2022, which is around 1.8, 1.7, somewhere close to. Mozambique, we're not very sure because it's the same scenario there as well. We have there's still some stocks left over from current year. We're not sure how even if everything goes well, if there's no problem, if everything is sorted, I really doubt whether the cargo is all stored in a proper condition and if the quality is maintained, even if technically if something happens in February or January, we're not very sure how the crop is, like the leftover stock which is there in Mozambique, considering all the issues which is had. So that's about it, sir.
No, I totally agree. Like, I'll be very scared to buy anything from Mozambique, right? Even not this year, even next year, because I don't know what is going to come because they're already having a lot of carry forward stock, not stored in right manner.
I'm sure that Indian government would talk to the Mozambique government and try to find something because there's a lot of time left till the next crop starts, and there was a lot of efforts from Indian government this year as well to get things lined up in Mozambique. Unfortunately, didn't work out to a great extent. They still had they say there were some policies on. I don't want to comment too much about the local government policies which they had, but still there's a lot of time left.
Yeah, I totally agree. There is a lot of time. Only thing is that actually, now the trust in the trade community itself, right? Because there have been a lot of challenges, right? It is just not the government. Government has tried. I also know, I was having some inside information about what's happening, but things didn't went in the right direction. And now this year, I would say that those traders would have won their hands. They'll be very cautious, right? And for new trader to get into it and in those market, how challenging that could be. So I think I would have another question for you, Haribai, what we can do so that the farmers become more incentivized in Tanzania, right? Because your crop come at a very critical time where actually our supplies are getting diminished, right? It comes in typically August and that period of year, and then we are having festive season just back after those August, September, October. So that's a very critical time where you'll see that even last year, the sudden high spike of what happened in that 3 months itself. So here actually we will wait a lot on how Tanzania is able to, because Malawi is another very small crop. We are looking at 40,000-50,000 tons, and yeah, so how high they can go. It's like there is a limitation. But Tanzania is having up north, central, south, different crop varieties with different cycles. So I am very hopeful if we incentivize Tanzania, a lot can happen. Now, what can be those incentives so that Tanzania grows, for example, 0.3 million metric ton or 0.35 million metric ton, because they have that possibility. What can be done from our side, as I'm saying that your recommendation to Indian government, Indian traders, what needs to be done?
So one thing which could be done is that open policy. Either it's an open policy from the Indian government perspective that India is ready to buy whatever's harvested in Tanzania, because Tanzania grows all these crop only for India. When there's hardly a small percentage of local consumption, which it is negligible. So when Indian government is giving an open mindset, keeping my open mindset for the farmers in throughout Africa, let's say, so we are capable of growing. it's not that, because as Mr. Hitesh said, that when there was a period where India was restricting the imports and all, and later on there wasn't much of a drop, but it has not technically dropped so much. It did drop, but considering last year, we can see that Tanzania is capable of exporting 1.8 lakh ton. So if India keeps even an open policy, or else I think there's a MOU which is under process as well between India and Tanzania, just like what we have with Mozambique. It's not in the final stage. If at all, if everything goes well, if India is open, then I think even 3 lakh ton just as what Myanmar is capable of achieving. Tanzania can still achieve, provided if some technical know-how knowledge is also shared with the Tanzanian farmers through the ministry, or because the yield and the type of seeds and what is being used there is not as good as what the yield is being got in India. So if India and Tanzania can work hand in hand, then these volumes are definitely achievable.
Perfect. No, I totally agree with you. Like, we need far more hand holding rather than just a transactional deals when it comes to East Africa, for sure. I would now again go back to Ankush Bhai. So, Ankush Bhai, now coming on the domestic part of it, see, we have seen that time and again, the government of India, their aim is actually to ensure that there is sufficient supply of dal in hand of the end consumer at a decent price points. Right. Now, here I've seen that, the efficiency of the government systems, we all know that they have been not that great. Now, a organization like yours, and then I'll also go to Dilip Bhai about talking about, a company like Reliance, which is having capability of doing on-ground procurement, aggregation, to certain extent, processing, and also having the last mile delivery capabilities, right? How do you see that actually, there is a possibility of where government can partner with companies like yours and Reliance and see to it that actually see end user get dal at I'll say that stable price points, and farmer also gets a stable remuneration for the work he's doing. I think that is a possible. What your take on that, sir?
So Deepak ji, so basically to come to your question directly and to answer that question directly, I'll rather just take you through two bigger issues there. One, that is central government eventually nominates some of the agencies like NEFED and NCCF and then FCI, and so all the agencies eventually try to procure cargoes centrally. And when it goes to the consumer directly, then it goes to the consumer through the state governments. Right. So, and it's a so we are in a commodity field, which is a cyclical. Every year it is a cyclical. So we have a very short period of 12 months. So within 12 months, we have the central government nominated agencies who procure it, and then they spend 2 to 3 months of the time to get the right price, to get the procurement. Then there are multiple agencies who keep the cargoes, like CWC, who eventually keeps the cargo in the warehouses. Then they allocate the cargoes to multiple state governments, with there some financial arrangements between the central and the state. Then the state government eventually puts some tenders for conversions. Then the end civil supplies, they eventually take the finished goods in their accounts, and then the final distribution happens. So eventually, it's such a lengthy process, and it involves a lot of stakeholders in between, which eventually takes a lot of time and consumes a lot of time. Out of that 12 months of the entire planning, eventually 6 or 7 months of the time period eventually goes into the execution of conversion from raw material to the FG. Whereas in many of the countries, it's not a phenomenon in India, but in other countries, in many of the countries where the corporates, so government to the private partnerships eventually works very phenomenally well, wherein eventually corporates who has eventually end-to-end visibility and end-to-end capabilities, they can have tie-ups with the government, and eventually they can procure on the behalf of government, keep the cargoes with themselves, convert it at a certain ratios through their arranged mails, right? Because eventually to have a quantifiable quantitative arrangements, we need to have a lot of third-party arrangements as well, right? Because it is not located to one location; it has to be regionalized, right? But the capability of a corporate or a company is better than a government, because eventually that's our day in, day out as a business, wherein we try to bring a lot of efficiencies as well, not only in terms of procurement, but also in terms of supply chain. And then when it comes to the conversion, then the distribution. So it not only gives the government the time frame wherein they can do a right distribution, but also manage a lot of efficiencies in the system. Third, the end-to-end can be really audited and really managed by one or two companies itself instead of having n number of stakeholders in between, which eventually creates a lot of complexity for the government to manage. So I think large corporates who have done these kind of activities in the past in multiple countries itself, those corporates can eventually help the government to do these kind of experiments. And India, I think it is a high time wherein India government has to look into such arrangements with the corporates wherein they can help and maintain these kind of efficiencies.
Mohanty, what to you? Your views on the same topic, sir?
I think government has got a formula now with chana dal. Initially, we were slightly confused. We got the intimation saying that start selling chana dal. We'll do it at 27.50, and you tell us what price you want the chana and how it will work out. I'm sorry, it's 60 rupees. This is I'm talking wheat. So initially, we were confused whether it is coming from NAFED or NCCF. There was a bit of a confusion for almost 1 month. We couldn't get any response. Slowly, I think NCCF colluded with us. I think we have taken material from them. The material is coming directly from the miller, but we give direct payment to the NCCF. I get a bill from the NCCF. So that thing, now it is working very smoothly. But initially it took 2 months. And this time, no doubt, the chana prices have been stopped at there. When they're fixing the retail price as 60 rupees, when the open market bulk price was 72, 73 rupees. At the same time, that yellow pizza also come, that has got an impact together. But they have got a formula. Company like ours, we have got a pan-India presence, more than 4,000 outlets. Certainly, they will come to us. We'll also try to do that, and no harm. But my basic point, whether they are doing through Reliance or DMart or through somebody else, we have to see what is the total production this time, what is the carryover stock, what is the import that is coming, what is the consumption requirement, how much is the shortage or what is this thing. That is more important than which channel the metal going to come to the consumers. If you give me 5 minutes, I'll just give my views on this, how it is looking at the moment.
Sure, please, sir.
I think the monsoon has been quite erratic this time. Initially, it was less, then sometime it was slightly surplus. If you go by the state, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, and AP, the main 5 states that we consider as far as tour of domestic is concerned. So we have been making a survey in all the places to understand where to buy, how much to keep, and how the price will behave. That we have been doing extensively. Overall, the crop is 15 to 20 days late this time, all around. In case of Karnataka, we see Gulbarga, Bidar, and Sidam. These are the places where it is a fantastic, very good crop. Yadgiri, Bijapur, Raichur, this is one belt where that is slightly low in terms of availability of moisture. Overall, it looks like there's 15 to 20% yield loss because of the lack of monsoon. And we consider Karnataka crop to be 75 to 80% as compared to normal crop what we get. As far as Maharashtra is concerned, the crop is just fantastic. Either it is 100%, some people might say it's 102%, 105%, that is how. And yield is fantastic. Gujarat, initial phase, it was fantastic. After some time, we saw there's a lot of excess rains due to later part of the year. In and around Ahmedabad. So that has caused some rain damage to the standing crop. But overall, the area has gone down by 11% and marginally drop in the productivity. Madhya Pradesh looks like to be 60% and AP looks to be 90%. Based on that, we make our assessment how the overall crop looks like. Maharashtra, we take 100%, Karnataka 70 to 75%, Gujarat 90%, Madhya Pradesh 60%, and Andhra 90%. So overall, the crop looks to be around.
I think we have lost Mohanty's video. So again, now I would like to go to Jayesh bhai. When I used to have engagement way back in 2011 with the Honorable Chief Minister of Gujarat, now who happens to be the Prime Minister of India, he used to love to nice quote, like, which was asarkari asarkari. That means which is non-governmental is actually effective. So that he always used to talk. What is your view that how we can see a private sector playing a little bit more solid role, where actually, like, the government machinery is a little bit weaker, and then they have to start get into, like, the operational aspect, where the government operational aspect when it comes to commodities is not that great. We all know about that. So how do you see the private sector playing it?
I think the Mohanty is back. Sorry, the thing. So I was just trying to say in a one line, to be honest, government is good to make the policies, and I think the business should be in the hands of the private sectors, and that is the one thing. Certainly, government interventions, I think, with the policy would be a better way to handle the trade as opposed to entering into a trade. So that's my take onto this thing. But one thing which I would like to emphasize on, two things which I think when Haran said also, and the Hitesh also had mentioned, that these two particular commodity where this, all the current, focus is being there. See, there cannot be a significant increase in a production, which government should have a fear when it comes to that they will compete with the Indian farmers. I think if you try and analyze the last 20 years data or 30 years data, the thing that the import of tuor and urad both, it is very consistent, and I think is about 600,000-700,000 tons of tuor, maybe 700,000-800,000 tons of the urad, and that's what is being there. So I think what you perhaps need to communicate or probably convince with, I think, the government is that these two particular commodity or the policy should be kept separately or should have a separate policy. I think that can take away a lot of fear or the worries which we have it in the trade at the present. Because if you look at the lentils, yes, Australia can double the production. Canada can double the production. So certainly that's where you need to have the protections. But the lentils is not India is only the sole consumer. So that it is Turkey is being there, rest of the world is being there. A lot of people in the world they consume the thing. So certainly for that you need to have different policy. But when it comes to tuor, India is the only consumer. And I do not see that there is any fear or the concern that government should have that this production could be 3 million or 4 million tons in Africa overnight or in this thing. That fear, I think, it doesn't exist there. So that is one thing I would like to just add there when it comes to deciding the policy of the tuor and udad especially.
No, Jayesh bhai, I totally agree with you. And in fact, like, I'll stick my neck out, and which I've been having bad habit, right? So I believe, like, this whole policy of, like, even the yellow peas, right? I see it as a very regressive policy, because you guys rightly mentioned those crops which are consumed by multiple countries and are produced by some of the developed countries which use mechanization, who use those type of activities, where they can actually suddenly increase their production without too much of human intervention. We have to be careful there, right? Rather than trying to be, like, overtly careful in those crops where we are the sole consumers and where there are only few origins, and those two few origins are global south, where you don't see that in, like, in just 1 year suddenly Tanzania or Myanmar would buy, like,
one more thing. Sorry to interrupt here. The thing.
Sure,
the tuor is not a primary crop for Africa. While the masoor, other crop like the yellow peas is a primary crop when it comes to the farming income, when in Australia or the Canada or whatever, it's a primary crop. While in Africa, tuor is a secondary crop. After planting the staple food like maize, sorghum, end of the season, to fix the nitrogen in the soil, the legumes are being planted. So tuor is not a primary income also for the farmers. It's an additional income to the farmers. So you do not expect that the acreage would to grow the thing, because primarily Africa would focus on their staple food, which is the maize, sorghum, and other stuff.
No, I totally agree with you. And this is where I believe, the protectionism is happening in wrong crops, right? And
Yes.
we have to be careful about that. And I believe, as you rightly mentioned, the one thing is that we all club pulses, right? So a common policy of pulses, I believe, we have to understand that at least Tuar and Urad are very different than majority of all the pulses and wheats which we talk about. Mohanty ji, back to you. Actually, we have lost you, so I have went to Jayesh bhai to have his nuggets of intelligence.
Yeah, sorry, there was a disconnection. Something happened here.
Yeah, please, sir, continue.
Okay, so I was going through the numbers. All put together, we are looking at a all India figure of 85 to 87% of the normal urban production. That is what it is. That translates into last year, I think it was around, as per government estimate, it was 36.6 lakh tons. And we saw actually, as per the trade figure, it was at 29 to 30 lakh tons. That was our estimate. This year also, we are looking for a similar kind of number, where the government has given an estimate of 32.4 lakh tons. We are looking at something at 28.5 to 29 lakh tons. Another thing I'll tell you, if you see the yield of Tuar over a period of time, it is slowly decreasing. At 3 years back, it was 941 kgs per hectare. Last year, it was 861. Before that, 760. Now, I think it's yet to be ascertained, but it's not very high. That is really a cause of concern for all of us. So we look like 28, 29 lakh tons is the production. If you look at the overall SND, I'm just trying to see. And we're taking a beginning stock in India is around not more than 2 lakh tons. Looking at a production of 2.8 to 2.9. As far Myanmar is concerned, now looks like they have got a good price, plus the weather is very good. They will come to 3.25 or something. That was the new number that has been coming for quite some time. Africa, we are not very optimistic. And last time it was 7 lakh tons or 8 lakh tons, not more than that. I think Mozambique, they have given already 2 lakh tons, another 50,000 or so. That is just getting out. That is what latest information we have been getting. All put together, I think our consumption requirement is slightly, even at a reduced consumption, because prices have gone up, the demand restriction has happened from 48, 50 lakh tons, has come down to 40 lakh tons as compared to a few years before, if you see. So our consumption requirement is now, I think the same number, 4 million tons. So we are short about 3 to 4 lakh tons. And again, there is no carryover stock. So we are just getting into a negative zone as far as Tuar is concerned. So
Right,
I think in terms of Hara Chana Dal, I think initially we didn't know how it's going to work out. So it took almost 2 months, 2.5 months, but all around they are giving. So Bharat Chalan, once it started coming, our Good Life Dal completely stopped because some loose is selling, otherwise complete is going. So that's a demand restriction. When they're capping the MRP, maximum retail price, 60 rupees Chana Dal, and open market price 68, 69. So that thing is going on very speed. So we have been taking a lot from the market. We are doing that. I think government has just started doing that in Atta also. The MRP they have fixed at 27.5. They have just asked us to start doing that. I think in next 20 days time, Atta will also start hitting all the retail stores. So that also will cap the prices. That is why I think we initially expected there is the prices are going to go up. There is so much of shortage, but that is how they have capped it. One side they are giving the under OMS this thing they are giving. Second side they are giving Bharat Atta. So in case they want to cap the prices, this will definitely have some impact. One is toward yellow peas is coming, that is impacting the entire pulses basket. All the pulses gone by 4 to 5 rupees or 6 rupees a kg down, and after the notification has come. So this will also really have a big impact. Again, from 31st March, they are extending a notch. That's a big question. If they extend, I think anything could happen. So a lot of ifs and buts as far as Tuar is concerned, but they have already announced after some time they're going to give Tuar Dal also Bharat Dal in the retail market. That is what is the news.
The perfect, sir. But I'll just again put a small, interjection here, that we also have to see, the buffers the government would be carrying, right? So whether I'm saying that, in the Chana also, right? Chana Dal, great move to control the price. At the same time, also, we have seen that the open market government is also liquidating. Now the $1 million question is that actually they have left with a very small amount. Now, for example, if China rebounds from here, right, they have already used their actually most potent weapon of their own storage, is their own buffer. Now, then they won't have if for example, if I am a speculator, though I am not, I don't speculate at all. In fact, I don't even take positions. But in case, let's assume I am a speculator, right? I would love to have this situation where I know that actually the government is having hardly any buffer left for China. And this is where actually it scares me as an end consumer, that in case something goes wrong from here, right? And we are also seeing in China also, we had previous session a week back on China, that crop doesn't look that great. Now, if you are having say roughly 94 lakh tons of crop in China, if it remains there, on the arrival there would be some pressure, but eventually, again, the fundamentals will come in place with hardly any carryover, any stock rate because see, the China remained at below 60 for so long because everybody was scared of NAFED. NAFED is sitting with 3 million metric ton. NAFED is sitting with 3 million metric ton. Now I know NAFED is not sitting with anything. Right. So from here, right, in case I'm having vested interest, which I believe nobody should be having it. But then this is how the I'll say that the taste of the market is. That opens me to a lot of challenges. And I also agree with you, this whether after 31st March they allow the yellow peas to be imported or not. But this also compromise our nutritional security, because when you compare with the tuar and its protein capabilities with the yellow pea, right? We know, actually, I don't want to mention it, but all of us sitting here and maybe most of the people who are on listening to the live broadcast, because this will interest them, would know that actually where the yellow peas generally are used globally, right? So I would not
I'd like
yeah,
to
please,
respond
sir.
here. I think chana, definitely there is a shortage of chana in India. But the prices were 48 rupees initially, then it went up to almost 60 to 63. Post Diwali, all of us are very bullish. Quite a lot of people are holding a lot of chana at the moment. But suddenly, this is the time the yellow peas that has come, that has put in the prices. And December, January, normally the time when you get a lot of vegetables.
Yes.
Very nearly December, January, bit of February, the all dal prices remain subdued this point of time. Again, in the month of May, June, when you get a lot of mango, the garib log roti ke saath mango khate hain, that is what people say. These are the two times where the demand for dal goes down drastically. And at the same time, we are just in the middle of the procurement season. Tuar arrivals are on, chana is on the way, then Kabul is there, Masoor is there. Though we said to Moong and Urad, we didn't get enough as compared to what normally it should have been. So overall, the basket looks short. Tuar looks, Moong and Urad also, we don't know. Urad, we don't get to see in domestic market at the moment. Everything is all imported. So hardly anything is there. And tuar and chana, we are thinking market will go up. Yellow peas have an impact on this, but after some time, I think this thing will come. Again, depends. They will extend yellow peas or don't extend. A lot depend on that. Plus, now government has to see what is their procurement policy. That also decides, because we are just getting into procurement time. So before that, I'll say, Anumatan, that the stock limit on tuar also it's a factor, because it's always a disadvantage for all the traders, except for the millers. So that is existing till 31st December. They are going to extend or they are not going to extend. That also decides quite a lot.
No, that's what I'm saying. It seems like too much of complex policy being created for something which is not that complex. This was not the month actually where you would be seeing irrespective of the shortages of chana, that price would be going too high, right? And that intervention coming here, and because this is the time we all know that actually the pulses prices goes down, arrivals comes in. So I believe it was I'll say that using a nuclear to kill maybe a fly. So this is what has happened. Going forward, I believe there would be more deliberation between the industry and the government to come out with a little bit more cohesive policy, which would be useful for all the stakeholders. Because I believe if you extend after 31st March the yellow peas, you'll be impacting the farmer directly, right? And we have seen you ban the export of onion, price crash, then NAFED has to enter to buy those onion to take the price up for the farmer. So again, it is you balance one, you balance somewhere else. So I believe there are a lot of challenge. And now I would like to again take the last intervention of all my panelists, starting with Ankush Bhai, with you. What is your view of tuar? And in case you also want to speak on urad, on the price points, do you see because I always love this to this ask this question. Teji Manda, क्या लगता है आपको market? You too, over to you, Ankush Bhai.
It's a very tough question, Deepak ji, because and I think most interesting question as well. But at this point in time, as Dilip ji just mentioned, that the overall dal demand is extremely poor, right? And most of the millers are empty, as in the pipeline stocks are very poor. Yet farmers are getting very good realization, and we have seen in the past 15 days, the market have eventually fallen by almost 10 to 15 rupees a kg in pigeon peas specifically. Likewise in black Matpe in anticipation of cargoes coming from Myanmar, the new crop from Myanmar. So I think in another 10 to 15 days, the market will try to find its fair price. And मुझे लगता है कि अभी भी the farmers will eventually have all the incentives to bring the cargoes into the APMC. So as soon as the government, so whenever the government will start coming to the purchases, then it can give some support to the market. Otherwise, market still have some scope for the arrivals to come and prices to fall down in case of pigeon peas for the short run. And in the long run, as we all have discussed, that the overall S&D is very tight. So a plain vanilla from the S&D perspective, market looks very good, but it will be a very tough decision for the government to how to manage the overall pricing. One of the ways for managing the prices could be what Dilip ji has just said, that the basis they way have done in case of chana dal by selling the chana dal at 60 rupees. Same way they have already announced their intention to sell pigeon peas dal, Bharat pigeon peas dal at maybe at some 100 rupees or 120, whatever they can sell in the future. So I think that can put up some of the cap. But before that, short run, I believe arrivals will prevail, and in the long run, the S&D should prevail.
Perfect. To you, Jayesh bhai, what is your outlook on the prices?
I have a little bit mixed views on that. See, the first thing, it depends on how the policy would be. As Dilip bhai said, that within a 2 weeks time, the pigeon peas has almost lost $15 rupees in a 2 weeks time. But we haven't seen even 1 kilo of yellow peas has come into the market. So that's a sentiment, how the sentiment would work on this thing. I think the S&D point of view, I think there is a shortfall about 10 to 15%, which is not as significant as such. As also when we talked on one-to-one basis, I also said that if the Horeca sector uses about 5 to 10% as a blending, I think that sorts the answer the problem as such. So I wouldn't be too much concerned or too much bullish from here as such. And also, I do not see that there is an oversupply as such. So looking at the Indian crop, I think the new Africa crop, Africa also the farmers have seen the better price. So we expect them to grow more. So I think the prices may not go up from this level. Perhaps it might come down a little bit.
Perfect. Dilip ji, crisply, your market outlook? Well,
My market outlook, I'll say, recently the farmers have seen a very high price of 125. Markets have already today reached 88 rupees in Akola and Karnataka mandis. The 90 rupees BT, that is what has been traded today. And anything next to 3-4 rupees, I think the arrivals will reduce in the mandis. And again, I think we are hearing the government and private trade, nobody has started buying as of now. All of us are waiting and watching, but we'll start. As far as government buying is concerned, they have to buy from the open market. Open market they'll buy or give some bonus. That also depends how they are going to do. But I think we'll see a V-shaped price recovery here. The markets have almost like 20-25 rupees. So suddenly there's a fall. Market will bottom out. The private price are going to come now. All the pipelines are completely empty. Plus, there could be some government buying could start. All put together, suddenly you'll see there's a recovery in the market. Less than 85 rupees, farmer are not going to get much material to this thing. Another thing, today, if you see, the Karnataka mandis are rolling around 88 rupees, same as Akola and other places as well. The arrivals are in a good swing in case of Karnataka. I think Gujarat and Maharashtra, the arrivals will pick up post 15th January. So 20th January to 10th February, that is the time the peak arrival will come. I'm looking at a price point of 82 to 84 in case of Karnataka and Gujarat. That always rules 2 rupees higher than Maharashtra prices. Maharashtra will go to 80, 82. That is what I'd look. And another thing, as a trader or a buyer, if you see last time we bought the material 72, 73, 74 rupees. And now we have to buy 82, 85 rupees. People will be very careful. They'll be a bit nervous because buying at 70, 72, buying at 85, 90 makes hell of a difference for anybody for that matter. So people will be slightly scared to take position at this kind of prices. Again, all depends. Bharat Dal, kitna, what price they are giving, white peas extension, plus another factor that comes with the weather at the exporting countries. Now we are saying Burma is good as well as Africa looks to be good up to some time. But what kind of weather prevails next to 2-3 months? But overall, it looks like last year the bottom price point was 72, 73 rupees. This time it now not going to go down 80, 81. 80, 81 in case of Maharashtra. Karnataka and Gujarat could be 82, 83, the lowest price point that we are looking at.
Now,
And
that's
we are
very
ready for
interesting.
that. So, yeah.
Right. That's a very interesting put. So last time, bottom was 72. This year we are looking at 80, 82. But the last year the peak was also pretty high, 128 to 130. Now,
Yeah.
if I just add up, with the same simple logic, are we seeing 140?
But
as a peak
nobody,
someday.
nobody has started buying as of now. Everybody is scared
Yeah.
and we're looking at the bottom. Once some people start coming, then government comes, pipelines are empty, millers full. I see a quick recovery. It will bottom out quickly and there will be quick recovery. That is what I'm looking at because it's not a very big crop. And the arrivals will be preferably for 1.5 months, not more than that. So whatever we want to procure, we have to do. Yeah.
No, I totally agree. In fact, last IPJ event, in Fab, so on CNBC, I said, only way to control price for government is to buy at high price and sell it low price. And eventually that is only saving the day for them. To you, Hari Bhai, what do you see, when the market start opening in Africa, where do you see the prices could be, the expectation? You can quote in dollars, that's fine.
Yeah, but a lot depends on what's happening in Burma. Burma has been saying that they have a very good crop this year, close to 3.25 lakh. So their offers from there is somewhere around 1,075,000, more or less stable, like $10-15 here and there. Considering that if Burma is able to give that quantity, but still, even if Burma gives that quantity, you will need more quantity from Africa to fill up the gap. From my perspective, somewhere around $900, $850 to $900 should be the opening price there.
Excellent.
In Africa.
Over to Varman. Now, I kept you last, Hitesh bhai, for a very simple reason, because all of our calculation is based on actually what calculation you are having. So at what price, do you see, Burma would be happy to export everything? Because I would believe that in first 2 months, we should buy every possible grain out of Burma.
So simply to put this up, I'll just give you a small glimpse. 1st January 23, the prices of tuor were $750. And eventually on 8th of September, it went to 1425. So in a matter of about 8 to 9 months, it just doubled. And one has to understand that Myanmar, it's a very different country when you come to buy, cargo. The reason is it's not like Canada where you can do a contract of 2,000 tons, 3,000 tons, 5,000 tons in a stretch. Myanmar people or Burmese suppliers usually sell in basis of 5 containers. So at every 5 containers juncture, they'll change the price. So if you have 10 or 20 or 50 people calling, in a matter of about half an hour, you will see the price jumping to $50 to $100 easily in a day's time. And I think Jayesh bhai will totally agree. He had an office previously and he understands this dynamics very, very well. So you have to understand that Myanmar is a very different country when it comes to exports. Number one. Number two, again, you have to understand that Myanmar, the politics, the geopolitics, the supplies here are very, very different. They do not depend on any bank lines. So all the money, what they invest is their own capital, which they bring in. And they don't worry, even if, the prices go up by 10%, 20%, they do not panic. They have the ability to hold the cargo till the last. And that is something which is very unique when you talk about, exporting countries. Number two. Number three, looking at the current situation in Myanmar, a lot of people feel and find that holding cargo is much, much more easier than holding money, physical money. So, again, it's a very different dynamics, as I said. So if you see from the highs to lows, from 1400 to 1035 today, I feel that, the bottom out is very, very near. And as rightly mentioned by most of the gentlemen out here, I believe that once the season comes up and once you have this buying which will come in gradually, you will see, it shoots up very, very fast. Yeah, that's my take for Tuar. If you talk about Matpe, yes, the production has increased. It last year, I understand it was around 675,000 tons. This year, I'm believing it will be anywhere around 800,000 tons, the highest in last few years what I have seen. However, it's a staple food for some of, but again, you have to understand that Matpe, it's not entirely exported to India. There are other countries also which participate. Like you have Pakistan, you have Sri Lanka, you have other countries also. So it's not entirely dependent on India. So over there also, if you see the demand coming from these all countries, whether it is Pakistan, Sri Lanka, our neighbor, then I think again, the prices will jump very, very fast. So I think, even in Matpe, I would say that on 1st January, the prices were around 725 levels. The highest what I have seen is 1000 levels in FAQ, and SQ was $90 to $100 plus than FAQ quality. So now it is standing anywhere today. It's around 930 to 940 levels. So it's very close to the bottom, what I feel. And if you have these, numbers which are being thrown up here and there, and you have this, that there is a big gap, India is definitely going to come buying, then the prices will remain firm in Myanmar. I don't see them coming very soon. That is my take, sir.
Perfect. Gaurav, would you like to stick your neck out and give some price level intervention? Or you'll have to stick to SND only?
Yeah, I'll stick to SND, but otherwise, if you see the direction, we are also bullish from here. The reason is that the SND is very tight, and it will finally reflect. The only problem in this whole scenario is that if India allows yellow peas imports beyond 31st of March. So that is a big concern for all pulses, not just say yellow peas or chickpeas, but also for pigeon peas and other pulses as well. So because final price for yellow peas in India, if it is allowed fully, right now it's about $450 CIF India. So this becomes the cheapest pulse. And when it was the cheapest pulse back in 2016-17, most of our pulses import were yellow peas only. We were importing close to 3 million tons of yellow peas. So we can definitely consume that kind of quantity. And when I say that we can consume that kind of quantity, it is only replacing the other pulses and some of the vegetables. So and that impacts the SND for everything.
Perfect point, very well taken. So I would like to now share what I believe is gonna happen, right? And this is very interesting thing. I love doing that. So I would like say that for Black Matpe, it is gonna be range bound. You might see a little bit of correction post 15th of January. But going forward across the year, I don't see too much of very high upside. But definitely when we'll be reaching typically June, July, there would be a little bit of upside on that. Now pigeon pea is very interesting aspect, it's interesting aspect because it's pretty complex, right? We have seen a lot of I'll say ifs and but by everyone, right? When we talk about it, for simple reason that it's a very interesting crop, and last year has been a good benchmark of what we have seen. Now, my take on pigeon pea is that, as Dilip said, we would be bottoming out pretty soon, and that I believe that would be happening by 15th of Jan, where I see possibility 82 to be the bottom, and from there I see recovery, and for till typically 31st of March, I believe it would remain range bound because expecting what government does with the yellow peas. And in the yellow peas, I don't see, like, if you ask me, I'm not very bullish that it is going to be impacting tour price too much, for very simple reason that actually, like, your availabilities are going to be restricted. How much you will import? Because, like, nobody has grown yellow peas for you, at least, right? So at certain level, like, you'll have the restriction of demand and supply gap there, where actually, like, irrespective of your demand, supplies are not going to be there. And there is again a very small number of people who would be still be, like, going for yellow peas, right? Because end of the day, it's a middle class, lower middle class and upper middle class, which leads to, like, surge in price of majority of the commodities. I see, like, in July again, Pigeon pea taking a pretty drastic upside until, like, we see arrival of crop coming from Africa. And in Africa, a lot will depend on, like, how the story in Mozambique plays out. And if that story is not, I'm saying that pro traders or pro import, and still we see those bottlenecks, I believe that God help Pigeon pea. September would be very, very tough. September, October would be very, very tough for Pigeon pea if we don't see some settlement happening in Mozambique. On the Mozambique side, I believe, like, we need to send a very strong signal now. Otherwise, it would be too late. And with that, that's my observation. And thanks a lot. We had a very interesting panel discussion. All I'm saying, Stalwart, and it was an honor to be with you on the panel. And I think Dilip ji is having some view.
Yeah, I've
Dilip ji,
got my
please,
last
like,
words. I think
please, sir.
the way Pigeon pea is going, I think some technological breakthrough is required. Scientists are doing. So I would say, I think we have seen green revolution by Dr. Swaminathan, white revolution by Dr. Korea, and the time for a yellow revolution. That we should all put together our hands together and help the government doing some kind of white revolution. That is what I wanted to say.
And it's a very interesting, sir. So this time GPC, actually, I've been invited to speak on technology innovations in pulses industry, and I'm covering Pigeon pea. So in case you are attending a GPC session, so I'll be giving a presentation as well as moderating a session on innovation in technology in pulses. And my focus, I love Pigeon pea a lot. We are from Gujarat. We love our tur dal. So definitely I'll be talking about some of the global intervention and even some of the intervention which has happened in other crops, which can be actually, like, replicated for Pigeon pea. And I would also take this opportunity to, like, talk about our friends who are having two great events coming up. One in Mahabalipuram on 8th, 9th, 10th, like, the Indo Agri Food and Feed. So please, who are here, as well as people who are watching us on different social media handles, please do join us in Mahabalipuram. At the same time, my other friend is having an event in Bangkok, and that is the South Asia Agri Summit. And please also join that. Both have their own flavors. We are talking about more of trade happening, import level discussions happening in Mahabalipuram, while Bangkok is a global place to play sport, right? And we all know what type of sport we can play there. Thanks a lot, and signing off. Take care. Bye.
Well, thank you so much, Deepak ji.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah.